Hi, my name is Jamie Tomey, and as always, I am so excited about this week's Tour. This week, we're speaking with Joseph Lappie, who works as a printer and as an artist in Iowa. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Tour. Today, we're talking with Joseph Lappie. I am so excited that he's here. We had a conversation the other day to prepare, and he's got a lot of fantastic slides to show you. So I would like to welcome you all to our Zoom session today, and welcome Joseph. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I am excited that you're here. So where are you right now in this space and all that gorgeous print behind you?
I'm currently in my office at St. Ambrose University. So this is the backdrop of my office.
And where is St. Ambrose University?
St. Ambrose University is in lovely Davenport, Iowa.
Nice.
Which is right on the Mississippi River. So, if you're at one of the higher bits, you can see over into Illinois, Rock Island side.
Nice.
Ambrose has a nice book paper print space, and so I'm in the basement of that, although our basement is still allows for windows.
Yeah, that's great. So you have a lot of light in your office, which is
and
always
in the shops. Actually, the shops are all windows on one side, so
oh, that's fantastic.
It's really pretty in that regard.
Yeah, I like that. And pretty in the book and paper regard too. So our first question usually on these Tours, of course, this isn't going to happen next month because in August we're doing all writers and wordy people. But for our book artists and paper people and printmakers, we always start with the question, how did you come to the book arts? So can you walk us through your path towards this place where you are right now?
Sure. So I got my BFA in graphic design and a BFA in painting at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was taking several print classes. And that element of it was always, I was better at that part than I was individually as a designer or as a painter. And I think it was what I was really meant to be, but I came in from, this world of having to think about a future in graphic design and knowing
right.
what painting was.
So centering yourself with that graphic.
Yeah, but my style was always more graphic, more illustrative. At about that time, I was working at a bookstore. I met my lovely partner, Anna, and we decided to move out to Portland, Oregon in 2003. So in 2003, we moved out to Portland. And I ended up working at Powell's bookstore there for
I love Powell's, the big one downtown.
Yep, the main one.
Oh,
and I worked in the rare book room, in sorting, and in the Pearl room, which was the art, music, theater spot.
Oh.
So I am still doing some painting. I have a small studio, or actually it was a large studio with Anna and another friend. And I'm interacting in the small press section, which a lot of it's letterpressed. I'm really into that idea. I'm working in the rare book room where there was the first printed Lewis and Clark expedition. There was, first editions of a lot of things I really liked. And I started really getting into this idea of imagery as the book and the book as imagery. I didn't really know that I don't know that I had a complete sense in what artist books were at that time, except for that I wanted to think about text and image as a unit.
Nice.
And so I started making these little tiny books that were really bad. My very first one that I ever made was I'll Never Be John Wayne or Mario Lopez, which was just a series of tiny little kind of bad drawings.
That.
But I made 27 copies, and within 3 weeks I sold 27 copies. Because people knew it was handmade and it was hand bound. And so I started doing more of that, and I was printing more. Part of Powell's, what Powell's allowed is you could take a class for free anywhere around the city.
Oh,
So I started taking etching classes at PNCA.
mm-hmm.
And then at some point in time, I just realized that I really wanted to think about imagery and text. And so I started to apply for graduate school. I was really happy working there, but I was also kind of listless. I didn't feel like I was doing what I wanted to do. And
Right.
so one of the 3 places I applied to was Columbia
Yeah.
College in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I was the only one I got into.
Uh,
So also, I missed my interview with Andrea to get in, but she was gracious and gave me a second one.
nice.
So
And
then
what,
I came there in 2005. One of the things I wanted to do was really just start from that final show that I had at Columbia. So this is really just the past 12 years. And I'm going to kind of go quickly through the first bit because those of you that know me have seen this stuff before, but I figured for those that didn't, they might want to see it. So
yeah.
my senior thesis at Columbia College in 2008 was
Right now, your graduate thesis.
my graduate thesis, thank you,
Yes. Yes.
is there's always more than one when there is always only one. This was my initial mock-up for it. What I was trying to do was figure out ways of making the book not just a book, so taking it off onto the wall. So what you see here are the 7 characters. The general idea behind these 7 characters that they're all one person and they're different personas of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So love and insecurity and deception and predatory nature and determination. Right.
And remind, these are not paper. These were carved from wood, right?
Yeah, yep. And we'll see that in a second. So the figures that you're seeing up front are from birch plywood and they're life size. So the tallest guy is 6.5 feet and the little kid on the left that's pointing is about 3.5 feet, give or take. So you can see him off the wall. That's a 3/4 inch piece of birch plywood that's been carved into like a relief print. If anybody's done relief with linoleum or wood, using gouges to carve out what the white space is and then inking up what the black space is. I wanted it to be kind of theatrical, and so that's why they're actually off the wall. If I had my druthers and a little bit more time, I would have made it much more stage-like where people would have been able to weave in and out of it.
Oh, okay.
That didn't come to fruition. But 3 of the characters had textual shadows. So in these textual shadows were short stories that were factual fictions. And that is like true stories that occurred to me that were embellished to make it worth reading.
Right.
So the stuff that happened was true, but the language was maybe more floral or exciting than what it would be, but still honoring what the idea behind the individual was.
Right.
So you see another one there behind determination. On the other characters, like the guy on the left, I have shadow selves, which was kind of rooted off of kind of the Jungian shadow self, which is like what your true personality is. So in this case, he was a predatory nature element. And so his shadow comes off as a wolf or a dog.
Yeah. That's great. I remember being struck with the multiplicity of these characters and also the way the actual shadows of the figures interacted with the text and the fake shadows, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, the actual shadows were a big part of what I did after this, because I was really, I don't know that I thought that much about those shadows at the time. Like that was a pretty exciting, unexpected bit for me, was how the shadows fell on top of it.
Yeah, shadows as art material.
Yeah, and all of the black shadows were faux suede, so they're really soft and they were meant to be touched. Oh. And so I was trying to think of this like a book in the sense that you had this visual element, you had this reading element, you had this tactile element. And then the one thing that didn't happen here is there's only one of them that I actually drilled through. It was the last minute. I had recorded audio for each head, and there was
Oh,
supposed to be a little outlet in everybody's ear that then you could go around and plug in a pair of headphones, and there'd
uh-huh.
be somewhere between a 2 and 5 minute loop of
The story.
information. That
Yeah.
would be the story, and it was different content than what you saw on the back. It was
Oh,
really like what that individual was thinking at that moment,
oh, wow.
and that never came to fruition. I have all the audio, but it never actually got put into the space because I had a drill that was running out of battery, and I think I only had like 10 hours left to install it. So I just called it.
Sure.
So that's that. And I also, a big part of it is I make prints out of all of these. I think these ones were fairly successful. Later on, you'll see ones that I think are less successful. But I wanted to create something that was both maybe a museum or gallery worthy experience alongside the multiplicity and the dissemination aspect that printmaking and book arts and papermaking provides. So I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that I made prints of all of them. So I made 5 prints of each, which took about 2 hours per print because
Yeah.
they're so large, and Columbia didn't have a press that big, so I had to use just a spoon and a
Oh my
turn
God.
for each
Holy.
one.
So what kind of paper is this on? Is it from that rolled paper that you put on
Yeah,
bulletin board?
this wasn't handmade paper. This was just mulberry. Like it would
Oh,
have been like a Dick Blick mulberry.
sure. Okay.
Mainly also because I didn't have the time to make that
Lo-
much that large.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So nothing fancy.
Okay, so Nancy is not a printmaker, and she's asking about the process of using a spoon. So can you walk us through that?
Sure.
And think in terms of carving just like a small linoleum block, because that's when we really use a spoon,
Yeah.
usually not on these big items. So can you explain
Yeah.
to?
So Nancy, relief printing is one of many printmaking processes, but what it is it's a raised surface process. So if you carve something out with a knife, or in this case I used a gouge, you're removing the printable space and you're leaving what would be the white space. And so then you would take a brayer and ink, and you would ink up that printable space. And then if you were using a spoon, you would place your paper down. Sometimes you might tape it into place so it doesn't move around. Or if you're using a Kozo-based fiber, an Asian-based fiber, you would just hold it down. And then you would use a wooden spoon, not like a metal soup spoon. You would want to use something that has a little bit of give to it, or a burin. And you can go in and you put your thumb right in the bowl of the spoon, and you just rub it for an
Yeah,
extended period of time until the ink goes to the other side.
yeah. So you're using the back of the spoon.
Yeah, you're using the convex side as
Yeah,
opposed to the concave side.
to rub the print, and it's if you don't have a press that you can run the print through, or you are making small things, or if you're a kid at home using a potato and printing that way.
Yeah, it works really well. The other great thing about it is it allows you to.
Sorry, you're welcome. Thank you. She says fantastic, thanks, and
Oh
I
yeah.
just said okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're able to like press harder. So if you run it through a press, you get the same pressure the entire time. But if you're using a spoon, you can press harder in one spot than in others, or you could lift it up and add a second color. And so you get more of like a freedom with a spoon than you would with a press.
And I also want to mention that you never, ever, ever want to use that spoon for cooking after you have used it
Correct.
for print, because
you should commit to the it just being a printing spoon. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my spoon that I use to rub prints. This is my spoon that I cook
It's your rubbing spoon. Just call
Your
it your rubbing spoon.
I love that. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes.
So I'm going to go into the books. Only books that I've done again since 2008. So these are all letterpress, except for one has some litho components to it. This is These Ghosts Are Never Behind Us. This is just a little onesie book, a little 8-pager, single fold, 2-color. I think I came and did this there was like a book event that would occur at Columbia every year, and I'm forgetting what the name of it was,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like a really big thing, and thousands of people would come in, and it was more of like a literary book event. But I did
Okay.
that
Yeah.
for one of those. This is the Prestidigitator, which is probably my least successful book. Also letterpress, 2-color with polymer plates. I was trying to be funny and talk about, I was doing a thing about print loves digital. And so I was
Ah,
coming up with things that all had digital in its title or in its word without it being like computer digital. So
got
Prestidigitator is like a magician, and digitalis, which is a flower. Uh,
right. Why do you think this wasn't successful?
oh, I don't think it was that funny.
Okay.
That was, that was probably it. It was really funny to me,
Yeah.
uh,
Nobody else.
and maybe less funny to everybody else.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I like the drawings. I like the color. It's actually like a dark chocolate brown on that blue. So I think there's elements to it that are nice.
Yeah. Okay.
This was just a little baby book that I was doing. Nothing super exciting there. This is a thesis of nothing, which is all lithography.
Okay.
So it's a
Now,
little
I have a
drum
question for you. How big are your editions usually for these baby books?
Well, in the past, I would do somewhere between 20 and 50.
Okay.
I've stopped doing that many
Okay.
because otherwise I just have giant drawers filled with them. I'm
Sure.
tired of having giant drawers filled with them. So I make
Sure.
smaller editions, but at this time I was making, actually I would take that back. These two, I probably made 100 to 150 because they're just single one-pagers.
Right.
So you can print them all at once and they're really fast.
Yeah.
But the drum leaves, this one I was invited to go down to the University of Dallas and
Mhm.
work with their graduate program.
Mhm.
And so I came up with the Sorrow Sea of Shallows, which is probably my favorite cover. And then went down there to find that their press was broken. So we spent a couple days fixing their press.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
printed this, which I really am happy with this book.
Yeah.
This
That.
was a series of 50, and they kept half and I kept half.
Now, is this printed on the book cloth?
It is, yeah, yep.
Yeah, that is quite lovely. I agree with that sentiment. And so you were called down there to work as a residency with the students, but you were worked as a press operator
Yeah, I
fixer.
didn't mind. Yeah, it was a visiting artist. It was a 6-day visiting artist gig. So I had a show and I was doing some talks and I was doing portfolio reviews, and then also part of it was making a piece.
Yeah,
And
so
it was Jürgen Strunks, if anybody knows Jürgen Strunks. I don't know if he's still working there, but he is a really fantastic printmaker, but a really intense printmaker. So he would pick me up at 7:30 every morning and he would drop me off at 9 o'clock at night. And it was like very German structured that entire day, where there was no breaks except for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We all
right,
ate together and then we all went home and went to sleep.
work time. You were put to work.
Yeah. So getting out of the books and into what came out of There Is Always More Than One was the procession. So the procession is still birch plywood. It was 1/2-inch birch plywood as opposed to the quarter, resulting in this. So this was in progress. The difference was in There Is Always More Than One, I was using just like a hand power saw. And
Oh,
I purchased a scroll saw, so I was able
yeah,
to get a little more detail.
yeah, I was wondering how you did those cuts.
Yeah, scroll saw.
Yeah,
So
wow.
I went to Oxbow for a residency for 2 weeks in I think it was 2011, because it was before Henry was born. And I asked all of the other residents and students there if they would pose for me. So I try as much as possible to always draw from life. Occasionally that's not possible, but as much as I can, I try to draw from real people, real things, real objects. And
And
so I ended
what,
up having maybe 30 people pose for me.
so why is that? What can you talk a little
Yeah,
bit
I
about?
think, well, I think, so I don't fuss about it too much. You know, if I'm just doing a quick gesture drawing that turns into a contour drawing, I need to focus more on the movement than about the accuracies. I'm not so intent on like having an absolutely 100% physically accurate person. I would rather have the movement be a part of it.
Okay.
And also drawing from a computer or from a photograph is like closing one eye, right? You become monocular. You
Yeah.
don't get to see things dimensionally. You don't see some of those subtleties. So it's like drawing a two-dimensional thing from a two-dimensional thing is,
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, not impossible. I certainly do it, and I'm not poo-pooing it in any way, shape, or form. I just, if I have my preference, I draw from life.
Yeah, and I love the word you use, monocular. That's such a great word to describe it.
So this is what that piece looks like when it's finished. Uh, and so one of the things I wanted to get is to bring back a little bit color. I had kind of just gotten into black and white or two color. And so I started using gouache. I would print an edition. So I'd still print these. And then I'd roll it up with an oil black and let it dry. And then going in with gouache, color in the color, in this case of the dress.
Oh, wow. And look at those shadows on the bottom that happen with the lighting of your photograph. That is really lovely.
Yeah, it was really about it being a physical object as well. Like in the same way as before, the physical object versus the multiplicity of the, still a physical object, but the multiplicity of the disseminated object, I guess.
Right, right.
My hope was that I would get collectors that would be like, I don't want to print, but I'll take that original.
Yeah,
Which just
yeah.
for the record didn't happen, but it was a good thought.
Yeah, and it you could might happen in the future.
Maybe.
How big are these sculptures?
So they range in, I think the smallest is probably like 4 or 5 inches to maybe 16 to 18 inches. So
Okay,
you'll see it in context in just a second. So these
okay,
are just the individuals. But the truth is none of these were meant to be individuals.
right.
They were meant to be a singular unit. Also thinking of it a little bit like an artist book, thinking of it like a comic book or like Egyptian funerary.
Right. Kind of a narrative
Yep.
going to the
So
next.
these are the prints that were made from them. And I think these prints were still, they were pretty okay. I think of them more like character studies. So like if you were doing a comic book or if you were doing a story, to me, like there's not much more to these than being like, this is a character of something.
Yeah.
Uh, but what really for me was the big point was having them all together. So the
Yeah.
idea is that they all undulate up and down, moving. And so you'll see stuff that's up at the top, like little clouds that hit the top of the gallery. You'll see stuff that gets really low. This was also heavily based off of the Nuremberg Chronicles and Pliny the Elder's travelogue section of that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it was really kind of about those comic book narratives. Oops, I think I went the wrong way. So just seeing how that
Yeah.
flows up and down.
Yeah, and they interact with each other a different way because the figure that's on the right, that's the first one that you showed us, has extra elements that, yeah, right there, the lady with the bending down,
Yeah.
they interact in a different way as a whole with one another. And I also love that the interesting negative space that is happening when you have them all together.
Yeah, the whole point was really to think about the wall as the page space.
Oh, I love that.
Um,
Where is this show? Where was this show?
this was in several places. This right here was at the Kaddish Gallery, which is actually the university gallery space. And it's more or less exactly what I would have wanted. So the idea was that this was meant to be cyclical, and it was
Yeah.
meant to be about time and about the slow slog towards, you know, whatever decisions we make that then lead us back to that same decision.
Right.
And so ideally it would be in a space that's small enough that this last character that you see here, that's the woman with the ghost coming out of her mouth and the kind of the fire coming up, would then have led back to, on the far right, that little bear, that little like hairy man.
Yeah.
They
So
would have
this,
started the thing over again.
as you're talking about it and as I'm looking at it, it feels very much like the quarantine and the shelter in place and that repetition of time and every day being the same. And oh my gosh, it's almost August.
Right.
That's what it feels like.
Well, and a lot of these characters are sad, but a lot of them also, like, this is where I really started getting interested in like florography and like the meaning of flowers.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of these shadow pieces are actually different types of flowers that are being representative. A good example is, I don't know if we can see a good one from here. Oops. Oh yeah, where the woman bending over. No, not that one.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. In the far back, there's the woman that kind of tipping forward, and there's a bunch of rosemary. And rosemary is really meant as like feminine empowerment and strength. And I just got really interested in not necessarily believing in any way, shape, or form like the truth behind florography, but loving the meanings that we apply to things and how that in itself gives us meaning, whether or not it actually means that if a weed's only a weed because we call it a weed.
Right.
Like
right.
to other people, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. So
right. That reminds me of dandelions, which you can eat and you can make wine, all of the things.
Yeah. And they're great for pollinators.
Yeah.
So the progression led me to what I would consider to be, at the moment, like the thing that I'm the proudest of, which is Grand Illusion. There it is. It's pretty, right? No, I just thought I would show you like some of the initial sketches. So this was the absolute first sketch of this.
Oh, wow.
And so this is 80 feet long. It's 18 feet high. So I was invited in 2017 to do an exhibition at the Figge Art Museum, my first official like museum solo show.
Nice.
And I had an entire floor to myself.
You're like, how do you fill it?
So how do I fill it? Right. Particularly because I had a lot of these little books, and I had the procession, which was nice because the procession is also like 50 or 60 feet long.
Yeah.
But I decided to make a Grand Illusion. So a Grand Illusion is still kind of going into that world of carved birch plywood. They're not quite life size and they're not as small. So that middle figure that you see there is probably 4.5 feet tall, maybe 5 feet at most. And then you can see as it shrinks down farther below.
Yeah.
This stuff was really kind of based off of trickster gods and mythological and religious pantheons.
Right.
And trying to think a little bit about, again, florography and not numerology, but the importance that we imbue on meaning. So like, in the middle is Mother Earth, but then you have the triune, and that's also like the three fates, and that's also like past, present, future.
Right.
Above it, you have Raven and Coyote and Anansi the spider and Brer Rabbit and Prometheus, which were all trickster gods, which are kind of what we're supposed to be, right? We're selfish, inherently selfish, but we try to do good things, but sometimes we want to do bad things for ourselves and then accidentally do good things, and then we do more bad things, which is what I believe is like what trickster is.
Right.
Up at the top, you have like this moon pattern that's also cancer cells. So it's like the slow overtaking and death of something by trying to grow, right? So like cancer is, as we all know at this point in time, an ever-growing thing that's like trying to make itself bigger and better, but in fact is just destroying stuff.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of stuff going on here. And I love how the title, The Grand Illusion, it sounds like the Grand Illusion.
Yeah.
So I love that play on words as well.
So in this case also, there was absolutely, at this point in time, shadow was definitely a part of it.
Yeah,
Like the shadow here was meant to be the way that it is. Whereas the first one that was completely accidental, here, definitely purposeful.
Yeah.
So also not really going into chakras, but thinking about like importance of bodies. Those are coming out of ovaries. This is Yahweh, or this is Mother Earth, or this is God, or whoever you want to call it. And coming out of those ovaries are, this is a subtle joke just for myself. Those are birch male and female flowers. So I use birch plywood. And
clever.
So one side's the female flower, one side's the male flower. You see the flowers below kind of referencing the uterus and the vaginal path.
Sort of this root kind of looking thing at the bottom.
That's birth, that's growth.
Yeah, I love it.
We have one part of the triune, or one part of the fates, and this is cyclamen, which is a flower that's known for like thoughtful and intelligence, thoughtfulness and intelligence. So coming out of her head. I also tried to just put roots around them to see that they were rooted in this space, so that there's freedom, but there's not always freedom. So everybody has some sort of like placement.
I love that.
Aloe coming out of the heart. Aloe is a healing plant.
This is on the other side of the big Mother Earth.
Side, yep. So and I'll show the wide thing again. Again, drawing from life. Obviously not the giant plants coming out of the people, but the people themselves.
Right.
Life.
You have your models like embed the
right.
yarrow.
I do. Well, what I do is I have them hold, like in this case, she was holding a tube.
Oh, okay.
Like she was holding a tube to kind of get where the hands would be.
Yeah, to look at the shapes.
This is coriander, which is kind of like a flower of lust or longing.
Oh.
So a lot of people are like, oh, he's got a giant flower penis.
Right.
And it's meant to be a little bit like that, except for I just want to clarify that his penis is directly below it. So it's not his penis. It's just representing the lust and longing and like that kind of like impulse control issue that one might have.
So we use coriander in our burgers, and so that makes me laugh. Like lustful burger.
Lustful burger. Yep. This is reed, which is a flower of voice, and so it's coming out of the neck.
Joseph, I have to say these are just stunning, and I'm enjoying watching them individually and thinking about them as a whole. And you printed these as well?
I did. And so this would be the example where I don't think the prints in this case were worth it.
Okay. Why?
Yes, probably, they don't have the color, they don't have each other, they don't have the movement. So in the procession, you see like, I'm okay with them kind of being character studies.
Yeah.
These ones, I got mulberry again, which is kind of a whiter paper, and I used black ink. And also the truth is I only had about 8 months to put this entire thing together. So I created it all in 8 months.
Yeah.
I think if I were to go back, maybe I would think about color differently, or maybe I would try to print differently.
Yeah.
But it just seemed really, they seem stark. They seem stark to me.
The prints do?
Yeah, some of the smaller ones are fine, but when you get to like these big guys, I don't think they're successful prints.
I feel like you did carve out more white space on these than you did the other.
So this is interesting because the first one was a hand saw. The second one I used a scroll saw, and this I actually used a laser cutter and a CNC router.
Okay.
To do the exteriors and to blast out the big white spaces. So I still went in and spent probably 10 to 15 hours on each of the bigger ones, doing like the hair and the details. But like this is Henry's butt, And so instead of carving out his butt for 10 hours, I had the CNC router carve out his butt.
Yeah.
That's also an immortal jellyfish. So this is also a little bit about death and coming back, and like not coming back as a different soul, but like how when we die, our energy is able to be redirected to other energy through, soil. And
Right.
the immortal jellyfish is one of the only things that we know of so far that is able to actually age to become old, and then it can turn itself back into a pupae state.
Oh,
And
wow.
live its entire life, and then it can take itself back to a pupae state and relive its whole life.
So it regenerates a little
It
bit.
regenerates, yeah.
So I love that you used your kid too.
Yeah, they're on both sides. You'll see when we get back out to the big one, you'll see Amos on the other side. That's my cat Spaghetti, who's dead.
Oh, Spaghetti.
And these are spores. So this is the idea of like even mold spores or, that sort of thing still provides life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it takes over something that used to be alive, but through its energy distribution makes something else alive.
Right.
Those are just some of the sketches. Unfortunately,
Nice.
all of my original drawings got wet. We had a flood last year, and it was in the basement, and so all of my original drawings for this are now all moldy. They're still around, but they're moldy.
Yeah.
So this was the other half. You've seen these pieces before, but I just thought I'd give you context of what the space looked like. So this is the other part of that floor of the gallery, or the museum rather.
And those are your books in the middle?
Those are the books in the middle. Processions on the left. There's always more than one, as there in the back. And then this is a selection of the prints. And you can't really see too many of the Grand Illusion ones, but if you look at the very bottom, there's one, and that one turned out okay. Just overall, they didn't really work for me. And I think another big difference was for the procession. They're actually all 2-color. So if you look at this, you can kind of see that it's on Kozo, which is like a darker.
Yeah, it's a darker paper.
And so I printed a pure white first, and then printed black over it. So I think that was part of the reason why it was more successful. But I just didn't have time. So that's just the thing in its entirety again.
That is so great and so huge. And where do they live right now? In your basement again?
I have them just right here. So this is the sad bit is I was incredibly proud of this. I had a wonderful turnout. I felt really good. I still feel really good about the piece, but I submitted it in its entirety or in chunks to 9 different exhibitions. Yeah. Some of them just being like around Iowa even, and I haven't gotten a single piece in a single place.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So they just sit. I could go pick one up right now if I wanted to, because they just sit in my office.
They just live there.
They just live there. And now it's been 2 years, right? And so like if I want to do a show, they're like, well, that's 2 years old.
Right.
They didn't really get the life that I was hoping.
I'm sorry. I keep trying to, you're talking and I apologize. Would you want to put these out into the world individually for sale?
Well, I mean, I don't know. At some point in time, probably. I would like to see it. I feel part of the problem and why I've had trouble, I think, making in the past couple of years is because, in truth, I think of this as a singular piece.
Okay.
And I recognize that nobody is going to buy an 18-foot by 80-foot piece, but I was hoping to get it places. To
show it other places.
Yeah.
And then, 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Sell it off in pieces, maybe, yeah. But I don't know where I'm at right now. So in truth, I'm not sure where that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like all the big stuff that I've done. Some of the smaller stuff, and I saw Aubrey on here. I don't know if anybody else made it because I can't see the list of everybody. But I really like to do broadsides, poetry broadsides. So I just thought I'd show you some of the poetry broadsides that I do, all letterpress. They're all people that I know, and I ask them if they want to collaborate with me. In most cases, these are poems that are kind of misfit poems. Like they might not fit into a collection that they're working on, or they really, really like it, but it's just not going anywhere. And this really came off of that idea of like being really proud of something and just not getting it to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just started working with some poets that I really liked and that I knew. So I collaborate with Aubrey quite a bit, and I collaborate with Stephen Carl a lot. Actually, I've with everybody except for the middle Aubrey Barnes, I've collaborated at least twice with.
And are these broadsides, what is your usual edition? And then second question, what paper are you printing on? And then third question, what size are these?
So these are poster size. They vary a little bit, but let's say somewhere between 10 by 14 by 12 by 18 is general. The I Got Hands, I think they wanted it to be a little bit skinnier and longer, but think of just a general broadside size.
Sure.
All letterpress, all polymer letterpress. The edition tends to be how much I can get out of it. So it's somewhere between 40 and 50. And then the deal is I give the poets half.
Yeah.
And then I keep half.
And you have these for sale on your website?
I think they're on the website. I haven't had a lot of time to like make my website like super fine, like as a shop.
You are running a department. You have teachers. You're running a department. So yes, time is tricky.
I should also say, for those that don't know, as of tomorrow, I have been awarded full professorship. So I will be a full professor as of tomorrow.
Yay! Yeah.
So yeah, and my entire crew are amazing, and we're all just super busy right now. So I just haven't had a lot of time to think.
You have a lot of congratulations.
But they are for sale. If anybody wants one, I would like it. You can certainly go through me. I always say go through the poet first, because I can take these to conferences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are just a few more. Another one from Aubrey, one from Sarah Gardner. Some of these are regional. I try to do 6 a year, 2 of them being regional, 2 of them being national, and 2 of them being international.
So if people go to your website, pepticrobotpress.com, is that right?
I think it's just josephlappie.com.
Josephlappie.com. If they go to josephlappie.com and they can contact you through the website to get the poets information?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go kind of fast for this in case anybody has questions. Some of the other little things I do is just random portfolio pieces. So occasionally I get asked to be part of a screen print portfolio. On the right was my first collaboration with Henry, which is my older kid. So he drew all of the jellyfish, and then I wrote the text below it, and then we letterpressed it together. He actually would run it. I take that back. The text is letterpress. The imagery is all linoleum block. So I inked it up, and then he rolled it through. And he was about 5 at the time when he did that. But
I love that.
Rhymes in. This was one on the bottom was for Moving Pieces, all letterpress. The one on the right, I was invited to make a print for Bill Stewart through Vamp and Tramp when he died late last year. And so they did a portfolio, and this was handmade blue jean paper, and then lead type and a bunch of just wood type with a frisket around it. And then I was also invited to work with veterans in the EVAC print project. So I was teamed with a local vet, and they told me their story, and then I made a print based off of their story, which is the one on the left.
Lovely.
I work a lot with my peers and colleagues on campus. I have wonderful, wonderful peers and colleagues here in many departments. Dan Reardon Hale in the theater department directed and co-wrote a version of Little Prince that was all puppets. And so I did some of the illustrations for that. Bill Campbell did interpretations of original St. Ambrose of Milan hymns. So that was the drawing for that. Brandon Graham, who texted me this morning to make sure that he wanted to be here, but he was too busy. And just as a record, those of you that know Brandon, he told me that over the course of probably, I don't know, 5,000 words.
Yeah.
So it was just like really long. And I was like, in the time that it took you to write this, you could have just watched the thing.
Right.
But I was invited to do the cover of his first book. I didn't do any of the typesetting. I only did the imagery. The original drawing was on the left, and what I finished up with is on the right. I was also invited to do a poster for his second book, Missing People.
So I just want to in here, if you haven't read either of these books, they're fantastic. And my favorite of these two is Missing People. So you definitely should get them. You can get them at your favorite bookshop.org bookstore or at the library. They're fantastic.
They are.
Yeah.
He's okay, but the books are good.
Okay.
Stephen Carl is somebody that I met in Portland and is one of the best buds in my entire life. He and I collaborated on this book, States of Flux, a long time, like maybe 2010, shortly after I moved here. And we funded it ourselves. And so that's just what that looks like. He did another one and invited me to do the cover for Dork Swagger and then some interior illustrations, which is what that looks like. A big part of it is community projects. So I've really moved into this idea of art for the region and for the community. One of my big things is art at the market. I didn't show a lot of the stuff that I do, but we work a lot with our rape and sexual assault facilities. We have started working, when I say we, I'm talking about the art department as a whole. There's a group of us that do it with our Humility of Mary, which is kind of a homeless shelter. We started working with assisted living spaces. We work with anti-bullying campaigns. And this we've done for 5 years, where we go for 5 weeks for free out to the farmer's market and lug out the 250-pound letterpress, or bring out screens, or make buttons, or just do stamped pamphlets.
I love that.
Pretty much anything that has a social justice cause, I give the shop and presses and prints for free. If they insist on paying me, I donate the money back to whatever the organization is. So up top, we have the Ambrose Women for Social Justice. Down below is the German Heritage Center. We had some incidents of hate last year, so we had a unity walk. So I made letterpress posters for as many people that wanted them. We had another incident of hate. So I invited anybody that wanted to come in to bring a shirt, and we would monotype rainbows onto their shirt. And I had, I think, 5 different designs. So a heart, just a square. I think I had flowers. I think I had text of some sort.
I just love that.
And that brings me to quarantine. I'll go really fast for this. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Posters. So again, I know a lot of us have really been impacted by not just the quarantine, but by George Floyd and by Black Lives Matter and Breonna Taylor and all of these other people. So we had a protest that turned really violent in either late May or early June. I can't quite remember, but 2 people died. So we started having protests. And so I contacted the organizers of our Black Lives Matter protest and said, I have these presses. If you would like, I will make as many posters as I can to provide for the protest. They said, sure. I said, is there anything you want? And they're like, we're busy formulating a protest, so if you can come up with it, that would be great. So I made about 250 posters in total.
Yeah.
Of these 3, and then disseminated it throughout the march. And I think I'm just going to continue doing that. Like as long as I'm able, the shop and the presses and my skill need to be there for those sorts of situations. And so as long as I have permission from the organizers or from the group, I'm going to continue doing that.
Yeah.
But I won't push myself on it.
No, I'm sure I appreciate it.
Another thing I've been doing is I've been working on a coloring book with my kids. So they give me a prompt. They give me 4 prompts about aliens, and then I have to draw that alien. And so during quarantine, I started giving out free PDFs of these alien drawings. And so anybody who has kids that want them, I'll send them as a PDF for free. And then I'm almost done. I've got about 20 of them. I'm going to turn it into a bound coloring book. And then the donations to that will go to like a K through 12 arts organization of some sort.
I love that.
So,
and are they reach you on your website? Are those on your website yet?
They're not on the website yet, but if you just get a hold of me,
Yeah.
I've offered it on Facebook and on Instagram.
Okay.
Eventually they'll be on the website.
Nice.
And I try to have like all their attributes to be like positive attributes about things that are helpful, or like things that are, you know, important. So not my favorite drawing, but I'm really proud of Slow and Low, which is the one on the right.
Yeah.
So it's Slow and Low, and they're the Boogaloo Flu and Ketan. They're from the planet Tempo, and they're an intergalactic planetary MC and DJ. Slow and Low provide harmonious beats designed to quell anger and unrest, while also providing a fair amount of energetic body moving.
I love that.
Sabotages the mask of anger and redirects the energy into making some noise. And those are all Beastie Boys songs. So
I love that.
Slow and Low, let yourself go. And then,
yeah, I love that. That is fantastic.
so that's just an inside joke that nobody cares about, but I was pretty happy with. The last thing, this is the very last, I am working on new books. I haven't made books in a long time because I've been focused so much on those big projects. So this was the first one that I really started. I started this at PBI last year. Sean has seen it. Everybody kind of thought that I was drawing Sean, and I think that maybe he was my muse, but he didn't pose for me. It just mildly looks like him in one piece.
And he didn't take off his skin for you for that.
He didn't take his skin off for me, no. This is the book I'm the proudest of, and all I have is the text, but I have a complete text. I'm not going to read it for you here, but this is what I'm going to consider my next like substantial book. I do have a name for it. My name is Weakness. Anyway, I feel really good about some of this.
And Sean just dropped a funny emoji in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This is another book I'm working on, The Sun, which is really just about having my partner and my two kids in my life. My older kid used to say that she was the sun and he was Mercury and Amos was Venus and I was the moon. And so I wrote this thing about how the moon is the only thing that's like, that has to circle other things, right? So like the sun is the life-giving thing, and then the planets circle that, and then the moon is just something that circles something else.
I bet Anna just loves that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm completely done with it. I just haven't printed it yet. I haven't turned it into polymer. Yeah. But these are the first couple pages.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see this. This is so lovely.
And then I'm doing another thing called Singing Poorly, which is just a bunch of little linoleum blocks. That will be a concertina, which I'm pretty happy with, but it's going to be a little baby book. It's nothing spectacular. And then Brandon and Graham and I are doing something else. So he wrote the text and I'm doing the illustrations.
Oh, this reminds me, he is our featured verses and vignettes in our newsletter this month. Those of you who are not subscribed to our Artist Book House newsletter, you might want to subscribe because we premiered the first section of a story that he wrote for us last month in July's newsletter, but now we're switching verses and vignettes to be a weekly story and illustration online piece specifically for our subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you want to jump on that. And then maybe we can talk you into doing something for us too, Joseph. But sure. I love that. So it's going to be a printed series?
It'll be letterpress. It will all be letterpress. He also, I don't know a lot about guns. And so he wrote me last night to be like, Joseph, that's not a revolver. It's true, it's not a revolver, so I have to redraw it. But then he spent a long time telling me why it wasn't a revolver.
Right.
I get it. It's the wrong gun.
That's how he works.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. So I'll stop staring.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Quarantour with Joseph Lappie. We were so thrilled to see his work from many years ago and how it developed into his new work today. We appreciate your support. If you want to donate, you can head over to our website, which is in the description down below, and send a donation our way. Thank you.